Welcome in, latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And that is, of course, cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What's up, yo Tizzy Hober?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, doing good, Shane. I just realized I don't have my notes pulled up here. So give me a minute. Talk to the folks here. Welcome them into the show,
yeah.
Shane. Just give me about 30 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll take this opportunity for a public service announcement. Don't forget that Sunday is Mother's Day. And if you're listening to this podcast, you need to go get your mom something. Doesn't have to be much. It could be a gift card to Olive Garden. But this is that PSA announcement just so that it doesn't sneak up on you. In other news, you weather lovers out there, I have been following these tornadoes out in Oklahoma and Tennessee, so try to be safe. I know there was a lot of families and cousins out there affected by this horrible weather. I've not really focused too much on tornadoes since that movie Twister, but now that Oklahoma is in the conference, it's like, wait a minute, we're going to be over there, and some of these are gigantic. Tennessee tornadoes, don't get me wrong. We get like little ones, like F1s, which are like the lowest ones. But then you're watching some of these mammoths come through Oklahoma and just tearing up these towns. So I feel bad for all the family and, like I said, cousins out there. So stay safe. You may be listening to this in a bunker, but that and the PSA. So I think did that fill up the 30 seconds, Mike?
Yeah. I was certainly. There's my dog. He's telling. That's my little tornado warning right there. But. I was certainly not laughing at that because you're right. It's devastation. I've seen the videos, but what I'm laughing at is because I've been getting my bunker ready, Shade. I was just telling you off air. We are hopefully it doesn't strike in the middle of this podcast. Well, of course, that'll be good for ratings if it does, Shade. But if it cuts out, that'll be why I got my bunker ready. Though it's only about 50 feet away, so I'm good to go one way or another.
Yeah, if we start losing signal, we'll know that Mike's about to leave us, and it's kind of crazy. The older I get, especially my wife she's starting to turn into one of these doomsday preppers. I don't know if you've seen them.
Oh yeah.
These little prep stores are all over East Tennessee. It seems like a good cash business, but yeah. Next thing I know, our pantry's loaded with MREs and shit like that. I'm like, what's going on here? But I joke now, but if I ever need it, it's going to be nice having those crackers in the cabinet.
Right. So again, Shane, let's not meander much longer here because this storm is about 40 minutes away. So I want to make sure we get in as much as we can get. And we're going to talk some NIL because Brian Kelly, oh, buddy, did he open a can of worms yesterday. Hugh Freeze kind of did something similar as well. We've got, interesting, Shane. I teased this on Monday's show, but last week, if you missed it, go back, check it out. CFB Professor, we shared the projected point spreads for every single SEC football game. And wouldn't you know it, Shade, right after we did that, just a couple days later, DraftKings, FanDuel, they got all these SEC spreads and they're damn near identical. But there are about 10 to 15 games that I've got listed here that are slightly different. So I'm going to talk about that. And then, just close this out, Shane. Stephen Laston and I were talking, and I know you have been talking about this for quite a while, but just the importance of South Carolina at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And just how that could define the season, essentially, for both those football teams. So I got a collection of 10 games, Shane, that I think are on that level, that are equally important, that will define the season for at least one of the teams involved in the game. How's that sound?
Sounds great, man. Load it up, son. I guess you did need those notes after all.
Yeah, I got something written down here, I promise. But let's get into it first, Shane, because this is Brian Kelly. Went viral last night when he had these comments. This is, he had an interview, Jacques Doucet, WAFB, I think it is there in Baton Rouge. Jacques been on the show. He does a hell of a job.
Fantastic follow.
Covering LSU, and he's always at media days. He's always asked some of the best questions. He got a one-on-one with Brian Kelly, and let's just kick it over to him.
D lineman, where are you right now with that? Well, I think I made it pretty clear in a number of the press conferences that I had that we were in the market in recruiting in the transfer portal looking for defensive linemen. It hasn't fared very well, quite frankly, because we're selling something a little bit differently, and that is we want to recruit. We want to engage, build relationships. We want to develop, retain, and have success. We're not in the market of buying players, and unfortunately, right now, that's what some guys are looking for. They want to be bought. And look, I understand NIL is part of this, and we have an incredible collective. We have very, very generous opportunities around the greater Baton Rouge area for NIL opportunities. So they are here, but we're not going to go out and buy players. That's not what this is about. This was never about that. We will develop you. We will get you ready for the next step, as we did with Jaden Daniels, as we did with Malik Neighbors, as we did with Brian Thomas. We developed 3 defensive linemen that all got drafted this year, and we'll do that again. But if you're just looking to get paid, you're looking in the wrong place. If you like all the things that we do here in developing our players, bringing you into a championship program, playing in front of the best fan base in America, playing for championships, and having an opportunity for NIL, you should be a Tiger. But if you just want to get paid, this is not the place for you.
So now the question is, Shane, who's going to be the next LSU football coach? Because that ain't cutting it at IL. These Dabo comments, we'll get to Hugh Freeze, we ain't buying players. This is tremendous to say. We don't want to mess up the locker room. Why I owe it to this guy? I owe it to that guy. But if we're going to have this narrative that we ain't buying players, you got to be here because you won't be an LSU Tiger. Well, your ass as a coach is not going to be there long because this is fantastic. And the LSU fans will rally behind this. We got all we need. We don't need free agents, all this. Well, Shane, if they go 9-3, 8-4, they're going to be saying, God, we got to start buying some players.
I wish we were buying players. That's right. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. I think he's saying what people sure like. You got to think the old folks, man. That I think is who's rallying behind this, saying I miss those days. But it has gone, man. It is. We're in this TikTok generation, as I like to call it, and they need to be. They need to be pampered. They need to be paid. That's just where we're at, man. Now, are there some diehard kids coming down there that maybe their grandparents loved the university? Maybe they just always had this, like, if LSU gives me a shot, I'm going there regardless of money. Absolutely. I think they're going to get a lot of kids like that. They're going to develop a lot. But when you're talking about 1 or 2, he mentioned Jaden Daniels, I think is a terrible example. It's not like he was always at LSU. He transferred to LSU. You know what I'm saying? He was bought, in essence, to come to LSU and become the Heisman quarterback down there at LSU. So it's just, I don't know. It's kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth here. I truly believe that NIL is a huge part of LSU football. To think that they didn't try to pay some of these defensive linemen is absolutely nuts. They just didn't pay enough. They didn't give the opportunity for them to get down there. And now he's like, well, we didn't really want them, because they didn't want to play for the Tigers.
Yeah, and look at some of these numbers. For those just listening back later, again, LSU against the run, 84th in the country last year, yards per rush allowed. Explosive rushes, which is rushes of 10 or more yards, we were 106th in the country, dead last in the SEC. Third down stop rate, 117th in the country. That would have been 15th in the SEC. Again, I get it, Shane. But at the same time, Brian Kelly has come out here and said, man, we need us some defensive tackle. So that's another thing that's kind of lost in the narrative. And again, I'm not going to talk out both sides of my mouth here because I like when these coaches are transparent because too often these guys aren't.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that needs to go away. If you're going to go after all these guys in the portal at a specific position of need, they know that because you're out there saying it. Hey, we got to get us defensive line help. He has said that on multiple accounts. So now I think that's hurting him. And I also think it's funny, Shane, because I'm not trying to bury the guy because he's making some good points. There's a line to be walked because if you're just paying every free agent you can, a la Ole Miss, you're going to piss off some people that are already on the roster.
Yeah.
That are either not making very much money or not making any at all. I don't know. But, yeah, that's going to happen. But do we sit here and say, well, hell, they shouldn't have ran off. They made a commitment to Matt House. No, Matt House was terrible. We got to bring in Blake Baker. And we made him one of the highest, I think the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country. I mean, he's a free agent. We didn't get mad at that. I don't know, Shane. I think this is foolish, and this is especially to put it out there. We ain't buying players in an era of buying players when your main competition is doing just that. I don't think it's going to end well for them. I really don't.
Because again, everyone hears this, and it's not LSU in the living room of a kid's house trying to convince him to come down there. It's not about that. It's about these other coaches saying, well, look what the coach is saying. That why the hell would you want to go down there? They're not going to pay you. They want you just to play there because it's LSU. I do think I want to ask you this. One of the things about Alabama, Nick Saban, is he could afford the luxury of maybe not making NIL as a big of a deal as some of these other schools like an Ole Miss. Do you think that LSU, Brian Kelly, are even near that realm right now?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Now, again, they just had one hell of a draft, so maybe you could parlay that. And I'm sure. I'm absolutely. I was just looking it up as we were playing that clip, Shane. Again, this is not breaking news. LSU fans are well aware. SEC fans abroad may have forgotten. They currently have a commitment, Shane, from a 5-star quarterback, number one player in the country. I'm sure. He's looking at Jaden Daniels saying, I could be the next Jaden Daniels. Yeah. They got a commitment from number one receiver in the country, who I'm sure they sold him on. You can be the next Malik Neighbors. But guess what, Shane? You could do that at 20 other places too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't think because of one draft, Brian Kelly's got all this cachet to where LSU's getting this big discount with all these star players.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm starting to see some other schools act like, I don't know if you caught the Boise State coach. He came out and said, if you're going to be a freshman on this team, you're not going to make one single dime from NIL. I mean, talk about a bold. You want to talk about a bold strategy? Just telling none of the kids that make it here, you got to earn that NIL. I understand the principle behind it, because some of that turmoil that you talk about in the locker room when you got some of these players that may have been there, may be performing better than you than a wild card coming in, but I don't know. I don't think this is the narrative that you want to create. You kind of want to be like a Lane Kiffin right now and say, hey, well, we got the money. If you want to play, that's what we'll do.
Right. And isn't it the last thing I got on LSU on this, Shane? Isn't it funny that, and this is all about a lineman, I believe his name's Dominique Williams, went to Oklahoma. Oklahoma people are saying he may be the best player on defense now. Like he's that caliber. LSU was desperate to get him. Texas was in on him. Mizzou was it. I mean, we're talking some of the highest NIL teams in the country, and the fact that Oklahoma got him now. Again, they ain't poor. Remember, they lost Caden Green. Everybody's like, well, God, they don't have NIL. It's funny how you lose a key piece, then people pony up. Now you're an NIL king. But isn't it funny that people that are losing these guys out, then all of a sudden NIL's a problem? When, again, it was Oklahoma a couple months ago. It's NIL. This is ridiculous. We lost our best offensive lineman. Now we're getting our best defensive player because of NIL, allegedly. But again, I also, and I saw, apparently, I didn't hear it, but they're saying down there in Baton Rouge on the radio that this guy was offered $1.5 million, which I find that very hard to believe. But again, the team that missed him, they know the exact figures that this kid's getting. It's very, very ironic, isn't it?
I love the Oklahoma side of it, because it was similar to what LSU is trying to pull off here. That's where Oklahoma's coming from. And then they were like, oh, shit, we're going to lose all these guys. And then all of a sudden, any short list that Oklahoma's on, all of a sudden they're landing them because they're over in them boosters' living room saying, come on, man, open that wallet up. We need some help.
Right. And then so we got one more similar. This Hugh Freeze, I don't have the clip, but he was on, I believe this was, Mac and Cube, Jocks Radio, outstanding morning show out of Alabama, and they cover all the SEC. But here's head coach Hugh Freeze talking NIL. There's been much discussion even on this show, Shane. How far can they go with Peyton Thorne? Here's what Hugh Freeze had to say. The options you're presented with: develop Peyton Thorne, develop Holden Grenier, backup, develop Hank Brown, young quarterback, develop Walker, their true freshman, or go spend $1 million on this guy. And he doesn't say who, but he's talking about portal quarterback, obviously. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't bring myself to doing that because I wanted to put all the pieces together. That's a quote from Mr. Hugh Freeze. And again, I'm going to throw up, again, I'm not trying to bash the guy, but I mean, these are the stats here for old Peyton Thorne. So again, if you're fine with that, if you're fine with this level of production, and again, they've got Cam Coleman, the 5 stars, the next Megatron. He's going to be a fantastic, game-breaking SEC player. They just landed the Penn State transfer, Keandre Smith Lambert, I think is his name, over A&M, who A&M was desperate to get him. So they have weapons now. If Peyton Thorne does not deliver, it's on Hugh Freeze, and it's on Peyton Thorne next year. But what's your thoughts, Shane, when Hugh Freeze come out here and say, well, I ain't spending no $1 million on a quarterback?
And for those listeners that couldn't see those numbers, just know it was the bottom of every category, just about. I think this is the dumbest take today, Mike. I pulled up. I was intrigued the other day. Somebody posted something about Horde. I can't say the kid's name up there in Washington. Mm-hmm. He's hitting it, and so I happened to pull up that quarterback list, and it's Jackson Dart at the time at USC. Now he's at Ole Miss. And then you look at Caleb in the NFL, Heisman. You look at Brock, Georgia. Now he's up in Kentucky. It's like all these quarterbacks have bounced around. So to give me the guy is on the team, we just need to develop him spiel when we're looking at potentially the top 5-6 quarterbacks in the country that has come through here. It blows my mind that is what we're going to hang our hat on. The fact of the matter is you missed out. You didn't have the money. You couldn't get none of the guys. And I don't think that Hugh was not shopping for a quarterback. Anybody that believes that is an idiot, in my opinion. I guarantee you Hugh was out there shopping for a quarterback. But when you don't get them, that's what you do, man. You back up and say, hey, we already have our guys. We just got to develop them.
Right. And another way to look at this, Shane, again, it makes waves when it happens, but I'll just go off a couple that come to my mind, Shane. Nico and his alleged $8 million. Quinn Ewers, he got a deal with some jet company. You remember that? It was like private planes. Carson Beck and his Lamborghini, on and on and on. I'm sure all these star quarterbacks in the SEC making something, and probably most of the starters are probably making at least $1 million if they've produced. Do any of those fans give one damn? Do you care at all if Nico, even if Nico made $80 million, if Tennessee wins the SEC, you are not going to care at all?
No. I told you, Mike, when they got onto us about him in a plane and they're like, we're going to strip everything you win and blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit. As long as we win. You can take all the national championships. You can take the Heisman trophies. By God, I was there. I was in Atlanta. I was in Dallas, wherever it was at. You know what I'm saying? So, no, I pay them. And if I've got to go through another 10, 20 years of turmoil to get this every 20 years, well, then by goodness, that's what we'll do.
Right. All right, Shay. And then one other story. I mean, this is just hilarious. This made waves again, but I don't think it's going to have any impact. I truly don't. But it's still a fun little story, Shane, because Arkansas has added Monty Harrison. You say, who the hell is this Monty Harrison? Well, I don't follow baseball, so the name was unfamiliar to me. But he'd been playing baseball, I guess, for a decade. He was a four-star. Anytime you had a four-star recruit, pretty big news, Shane, particularly at a position of need. He was a 2014 four-star Shane. He's a 28-year-old. He's about to turn 29 years old. He's walking on. I mean, he's probably older than some of the coaches they got down there in Arkansas. But, I mean, what do you make of this? Again, he's a walk-on. He's not taking a scholarship. They don't even have to pay for his education. Apparently, Major League Baseball's got to pay for it. But this is wild.
I love it. I love it. Just picked up an NIL deal with Shoney's, you know. No, I love this. Hey, I go back. You remember Kelly Washington? I'm just saying. Here's a kid that kind of did the same route, went to baseball, came back, and I remember an LSU game like it was yesterday, scored 3 touchdowns and almost 300 yards receiving, and you're just like, I don't care how many old people we got to bring to this football team. If it helps us win, we'll take it. Now, he will be the life of that locker room. He'll be buying everybody's beer. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, I love it. If you could get some more talent to especially in that room, I think it helps them.
Yeah, Cousin Edward, he says, Rodney Dangerfield, Back to School. That's a classic. Anybody that hadn't seen that movie, go check it out. But
my brother hasn't stopped working out since he heard that news because he's got 4 years eligibility.
But again, this he's not going to factor in this year. But you're right. He could develop. And I wish I could remember who, because I don't follow the guy, but I saw a retweet. Someone that apparently this Monty Harrison, he's from St. Louis area. Yeah. Who does high school recruiting in St. Louis, said this guy's the biggest freak that I've seen come through St. Louis. So, again, he may have some big-time potential. It'll probably take him a year or two to get into football shape and all that, but that'd be wild. I mean, I'm rooting for him.
Has he got kids or something? They're trying to get a head start on the recruiting process here. Hey, didn't Chris Winkie do that? Didn't he do baseball? I mean, so you hear some freak athletes that, just went the baseball route and then circle back around and play football. It's not like he's been out of sports. It's not like he just started working out like Sinbad there. You know what I'm saying? He was in a major league. I don't know if he was Major League Baseball, but I would imagine he's been working out this entire time. So he's probably got a leg up on some of these kids.
Yeah. And the funniest thing I saw, I guess it was from the movie The Longest Yard. I think that's right. Yeah. But people were putting Michael Irvin. Remember, he played in that game as the new Arkansas receiver. So I thought that was pretty clever.
That's cool. I like it.
All right, Shane. So again, FanDuel has followed our lead here. No, excuse me. FanDuel has done it too. But these are from DraftKings. They just follow each other. Shane, is what it is. But again, last week we put out point spreads for every single SEC game, courtesy of the CFB professor, Adam McClintock. Again, he's not paid me to say this, but it's worth going up, signing up for his Patreon. It's only a couple of dollars a month. And the fact that he put this information out there and all the sports books immediately put out lines, that I'm just saying, that ain't a coincidence here, Shane. But we got a couple that are a little bit different. So maybe CFB professor got it wrong, or maybe the sports books got it wrong, Shane. And there's some real value in some of these point spreads. So some that really stood out to me, Shane, the Aggies here. Well, first of all, according to DraftKings, DraftKings, Shane, this is wild. Again, and I don't necessarily agree with this. We got the A&M schedule up here on the screen. A&M, according to DraftKings, favored in every single game aside from one.
Wow.
Can you identify that game?
Let's go. Jeez, I don't know. Now you got me wondering. LSU?
Oh, no, sir. It's your Texas Longhorns. So could you imagine a world where Texas and Texas A&M, as much as we've been hyping up this damn game, Shane, if they both go into that game at 11-0 and it's for like the right to play Georgia in the SEC championship, that's the only way that game could get even more hyped. You know what?
I'm not doing it, man. I'm not getting on it, man. They keep drawing me in, though. You know what I'm saying? The fact that you've got a new coach, new everything, and you've got Texas A&M a favorite in every single game except the last one. That blows my mind. maybe I'm sleeping on them.
And
I
again,
see Kyle there. Maybe I need to start getting in on them Aggies again.
And like I said, not even I would go that far, and I've been pretty high on A&M, but I just thought that was interesting. But one game that that DraftKings has flipped. There's actually two of them, but one game right off the docket here, Shane. CFP Professor had Notre Dame favored. Remember?
Yeah.
At A&M, but only by a 1.5. So very near a pick 'em. DraftKings flips that. Notre Dame at A&M. A&M favored in the opener by 1 point. So basically, I guess I'm just asking you, which line do you like better, Shane? A&M favored by 1 or A&M underdog by a 1.5?
Well, I mean, for the gambling, I like the underdog, but I like being the favorite. I think that's a strong statement for the SEC. Here's a turnover from a school that didn't even make a bowl game, and now they are a favorite by 1 point. So, yeah, I like that.
Cousin Kyle says, please don't bet the house, Shane. Don't break my heart once again. You know what?
You'll notice some of these bottles will start missing. You know, I'm selling them off eBay so I can fix my habit.
And then how about this one, Shane? I think you'll like this one. Speak of the devil here. Brian Kelly, you better win these damn games now. But remember, and this was pretty surprising, I thought, when we read it last week, Shane. CFP Professor has LSU and Southern Cal in the opener. He had it as a pick 'em. Mm-hmm. DraftKings has got LSU as a 6-point favorite against Southern Cal. So I kind of buy that a little bit more. I know Lincoln Riley and all that. They got a lot cooking over there, but I will be, at least on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm going to be fascinated to see this defense, Shane, going up against Southern Cal offense, which, again, I have no idea how good they're going to be, but it's going to be a test right out the gate. You know what?
Yeah. Man, I really try not. I know LSU's defense was horrible, but that offense sometimes scored so quick that like they didn't really give them a shot here. So I do think that defense is going to improve, and don't be surprised if this is one of those lines that doesn't. I don't think it's settled. I think it's a line that moves a little bit closer to that date. It wouldn't surprise me if LSU's not a 9-point favorite by the time this thing kicks off.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then how about, I thought this was kind of interesting, Shane, because this is such a huge game here. But Georgia at Alabama.
Yeah.
Game we've all had circled since it was announced, basically. CFB Professor had Georgia as a 6.5-point favorite in Tuscaloosa. And I said, by God, you better watch the Crimson Tide in that one. And I think DraftKings agrees because they got Georgia, still a favorite, but only by 3.5. So that's a big difference there. And now if we're talking 3.5, I think I'm leaning back towards Georgia. But basically, if you can get it 4 or more in terms of Georgia,
yeah,
I'm probably betting Alabama. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know right now. I'm going to have to sleep on that one, but I am kind of surprised that it is that close. I would imagine that Vegas would have Georgia a little bit ahead of them. And this is a week 4 game, and there's a lot of telltale matchups before that one. So this is one that could move around quite a bit, but I'm kind of surprised it's that close, to be honest with you. So in that case, I'm kind of favoring Georgia in that situation.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, one thing I asked our buddy Stephen Laston on the last episode, Shane, I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, I want to get your thoughts because this occurred to me live during the show. Again, I've got Bama's defensive stats. If you're just listening back, returning production. Bama's only 33% returning and we're just talking defense here, defensive returning production. That ranks 126th in the country, 15th in the SEC. Now, this was typically the case under Nick Saban. They don't have they never had a ton of production because they sent so many guys to the NFL. And every year you could look at Alabama returning production, it's hovering around the 90s to the hundreds. And say, well, I got faith because I got a loaded roster. They got the best coach of all time, and he's a defensive mastermind. We're going to be fine. Now, that could still be the case, Shane, because, again, Alabama's got a elite roster, one of the best in the country, top 5 in the country, in my opinion. But how, if at all, and it may not be a concern at all to you, Shane, but does this concern you at all that we're this low on defensive returning production for the Crimson Tide, given that we have a new coach, new defensive coordinator, and so much change in Tuscaloosa?
Absolutely, man. I mean, this is, I don't know if you caught that wonderful episode with Shane and Paul Feinbaum, but that's one of the things I mentioned. I don't think that this is a rebuild. That was like when you talked about Saban, it was just a reload constantly. You just had next guy up kind of mentality. And I don't think that's the same this year. I think there was obviously a little bit of a reload, but there's a little bit of a rebuild down there in Tuscaloosa. And that's why I was afraid that Alabama was going to struggle out of the gate. Now, toward the end of the season, again, a lot of 4- and 5-star talent on this roster. It wouldn't surprise me if they just went out. But especially that first month, I expect Alabama to struggle a little bit.
Right, and just again, we're specifically talking about the Georgia game here, but Georgia ranks number 3 in the SEC in returning offensive production. And this was already the number 1 third down team in the country, top 10 in every metric that I have here: offensive scoring efficiency, yards per pass, yards per rush, explosive passes, and explosive rushing. They better get it on the same page early.
Yeah.
Because Georgia's coming to town, brother, and I bet Kirby would like nothing more than to hang, like, say, a 50 burger on Alabama. And because what a statement that would be.
I tell you, I saw him golfing today with Saban and all them. And out of all of them, I think Kirby looked like he was having the least amount of fun. He'd rather be at work, focused on how he can make this team better. He just kind of had that demeanor to him, you know?
Yep. All right, how about this one? This one will catch your eye. Speaking of Georgia, Shane, your Texas Longhorns. Again, CFP Professor had Georgia as a 5-point favorite in Austin come October 19th. DraftKings shifted it significantly. Georgia still favored, but only by 1.5 points at Texas. What's your thoughts on that one?
Means that this game got even more interesting. No, I mean, you're talking, if you're talking the top 3 games that people are looking forward to the most this year, this is one of those. And I think it's kind of inching its way closer to the top,
right,
if not the top. I mean, there's some people think that this is a preview of the national championship.
Yeah, I think the day Saban retired, this became the game I was looking forward to the most. You know what?
If Saban were coming back, obviously Alabama, Georgia would have been game 1, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah.
I mean, as much as I love Texas A&M, and kind of bringing that story back, I think that one would overshadow. But now that it's kind of a rebuild, it's earlier in the season. No, it's Georgia, Texas. This is the game I'm looking forward to probably the most.
But again, we got to remember A&M favored in every damn game. So
yeah.
Now we got Tim. He's on a rampage down here in the mention. So let's cover Ole Miss real quick. This was interesting, and I think you'll love this because I think you called this out when we did these point spread games. But CFB Professor Shane, he has Georgia at Ole Miss. He had Georgia as a 9.5-point favorite. I believe Cousin Shane said, well, not so fast, my friend. And DraftKings was listening. Georgia still favored, but only by 5.5 at Ole Miss. This could be the game of the year right here.
This is Ole Miss's game of the year. You know, this is Lane Kiffin's game. Saban's no longer here. You know, so Lane Kiffin has shifted his attention to one Kirby Smart, you know, because when people talk about the best in the SEC, they sometimes Lane's name gets brought up, but the first one that gets brought up right now is Kirby Smart. So you better believe this is his Super Bowl. And after that game last year, talking about all the players that he didn't have and now he does have, because unlike LSU. They buy him up there. He's got all the toys that he needs to go toe to toe with the Georgia Bulldogs. So you better believe this is one that's not going to get overlooked. Obviously,
Cousin Trey's he's pulling a Cousin Shane. He says, "That the first half spread?" No, that's the game spread right there. And our buddy Outright, what is the Tennessee spread? Arkansas, Tennessee, and LSU. I believe it was Tennessee, Arkansas. I think it was Tennessee 7.5, and then LSU. I think it was around 13, according to CFB Professor. So I don't have those right in front of me, but I know, Shane.
Yeah,
and we're going to be talking about this game in just a minute here. Florida, Miami, CFB Professor. He had Florida outright favored by 2, if you remember last week. DraftKings has flipped that. Miami favored by 2 over Florida in Gainesville. So again, they're not giving the edge to the home team here. And I in fact like that if I'm Billy Napier. I love being the underdog. We'll have 6 months to talk about it. We'll get the annual, this is the year. Miami, you're back. They landed a quarterback that Hugh Freeze wouldn't pay $1 million to. All this stuff. Give me the underdog, Florida. I love that it's flipped, but I just thought it was interesting.
I mean, this is it. You want to talk? Look, they've been doing this for several years. You remember all them Utah games? It was like, Billy can't do that,
Right.
Now, obviously, last year didn't work out, but the year before, we were like, oh, man, Florida's back. You know what I'm saying? So I think the fact that you're coming in an underdog expected to lose that matchup would make a victory even more sweeter. So I don't know. They must have put in the new transfers that they got, and then they're like, okay, let's adjust this a little bit. But that's going to be a hell of a matchup, Mike.
Right. And this one will, again, your Texas Longhorns, this will blow you away. And I advise everybody. I mean, they're not even a sponsor, but I would run to DraftKings right now and sign up for an account, Shane, because CFB Professor, I think he's got this one nailed. He had Texas favored by 10 at Michigan, defending national champ. That feels right to me. DraftKings, Shane, they've knocked it down. They ain't believe it. People say I hate Texas. I think it's DraftKings that hates Texas, Shane. Texas favored by 3.
Get out of here.
At Michigan with, all their losses there. Give me the 3. I'd run and take that if I could.
3 scores. I can't wait to see Manning come in the third quarter up there. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't snow in September. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I like that one. Get on that one before it moves.
And look how good one thing I loved about doing these graphics was just a refresher, Shane, of how the teams did last year. And again, if you're just listening back, I got Texas returning production on the screen. They were number 5 in the SEC in defensive returning production at 66% returning. But what I really want to point your eyes to is against the run. Yards per rush, Texas was number 5 in the country. That would have led the SEC. They were number 2 in the country in third down percentage and number 6 in allowing explosive runs. So that's runs over 10 yards. They were top 10 in the country, Shade. And all Michigan knows how to do is run the ball. They are not going to be able to run against this wall coming at them of the Longhorns. I mean, this is a blowout got written all over it.
Them cheating bastards up there. Get one for the Gipper.
How about this one, Shane? I know you'll like this here. Back to Florida. Oh, buddy. So again, CFB Professor, he had Florida favored, home field advantage over A&M week 3. DraftKings, not only have they flipped it, they've got A&M by 4.
Wow.
Over the Florida Gators in the swamp. And somebody at DraftKings hates Billy Napier, hates the Gators. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you. But does that feel, I don't know. Which way would you lean here? CFB Professor, who's got Florida favored by 3? Or would you go DraftKings, A&M favored by 4? Which line do you like more?
Oh, man. I don't know, Mike. I don't know. I think, I mean, obviously you're a little higher on A&M than I was, but
right.
I start hearing stuff like this. It's like, well, maybe I need to reevaluate, because I think Florida being favored made sense to me. I think that Billy and company, they're going to have so much on them. Like they cannot lose any game the first 5 weeks, or they're in trouble. I mean, everybody knows what the back half of the Florida Gator schedule looks like. So, I can make an argument that you may overlook a Samford or a UCF maybe, but you really just can't. You can't afford to look over any of these teams. So, no, I like Florida being favored, but if it's not, I may put a little money on this one. Florida Gators ain't liking that, but I mean, a Florida bet, it's never went against me, right?
All right, how about I did this one just for you, buddy. Mizzou, again, the one we've been betting milk chugging on here.
Real quick,
yes,
going
sir.
back to Florida. So, did you look at all of Florida? Did they have a list of all Florida games? I'm just curious. Okay.
So, see, DraftKings, they don't do them all. They just did. They're not as well researched as CFB Professor, who did every single game. They just did big time game. And I don't have them all listed here from DraftKings, just the ones that are changed essentially. Anyone I'm not mentioning is exactly the same as CFB Professor, which is, again, while I'm sitting here rolling my eyes saying, oh, how did they get 950 out of 1,000 dead on as someone we had last week? I don't know, but I have a clue.
So if that's the case, and let's say we're just rolling off that, on that schedule, how many games do you think if you're just guessing what FanDuel or DraftKings would be doing, how many games do you think they would actually be favorites in?
You're asking, who you ask about Florida?
Florida, yeah.
How many games would Florida be favored in if they're not favored against Miami and A&M?
Yeah, because I could see the argument against Miami. I could even see the argument for A&M. But after that, I'm looking at potentially 3, maybe 4. Are you seeing the same thing?
I mean, I would think Mississippi State, Central Florida, Samford, of course.
Yeah.
There won't be I don't even know if you can bet against Samford because it's FCS, but maybe Kentucky. But I wouldn't. It's in Gainesville. Give me Florida. If it was in Lexington, you'd give me Kentucky. But I think it's close to a pick 'em.
So you think 4 and 8 is what they're expecting? I mean, obviously 5.
Not what I'm expecting.
Yeah, no.
But the point spreads is what you were asking me.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, buddy. Strap up, Billy.
All right, I think you were trying to get distracted from milk chugging here, Shane. That's the only reason I'm bringing this one up, because, again, not much of a difference here. But CFP Professor, he has Missouri at A&M. He had A&M favored by 2. DraftKings, Missouri at A&M, they got A&M favored. Again, favored in every damn game except Texas. But A&M by 4.
What?
So this spread's getting even closer to my favor, Shane, here, as I'm just wondering, which brand of milk will you be buying?
Woggles, man. Not a sponsor, but they could be.
All right, how about you're gonna like this one, Shane, because this. Well, I don't know if you are, quite frankly. That's why I'm bringing it up. So, CFP Professor, this I think this kind of blew your wig if you had a wig when we brought it up last week. Florida at Tennessee.
Yeah.
CFP Professor had Tennessee favored by 2.5. I remember you getting very upset with that.
Yep.
I think you said 2.5 touchdowns. Well, that's about what DraftKings has got it at. They've got it Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 11. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have it a multi double digit spread or a 2.5 point spread? Where are you more comfortable given your history with this damn game?
Well, to be honest, I am not going to be betting on this game. Everybody knows that, but I like the 11. I like the 11 if you're a Tennessee fan, because then again, you're going into a game expecting not just to win, but to win by multiple scores. But how many times have we said that going into that Florida game?
Because the Trey says you'll be drinking buttermilk over here.
Oh, no. Heck no.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know about Florida, Tennessee 11. Because, again, I think whoever's doing these DraftKings, they just hate Florida. But just play it out. Just play it out with me. And I know we've done this. Let's safely assume they beat Samford. They beat Central Florida. because it's a home game. I know they got Gus and they got KJ and all this, but you still got to lean Florida in that one. At Mississippi State, they're in rebuild mode. I give Mississippi State a puncher's chance, but you have to favor Florida, I think, if you're a neutral person. So at worst, we're talking 3-2. I think Florida's probably going to be 5-0 or 4-1 at worst going into Tennessee. If they're 4-1, again, that's worst case in my book. Give me the 11 points because Florida. Because who knows about Tennessee? I mean, Tennessee could lose to NC State. I don't think they will, but you could talk me into that. You could talk me into them losing at Oklahoma. And then all of a sudden, we get to October 12th. If Florida's undefeated and Tennessee's got a loss or two, Florida may be outright favored to win that game.
I think that's the kind of game you're playing right now. If you like to bet on these games this far out, you need to pick what do you think happens, because I'm like you. I think if Tennessee wins, let's say they're 4-1, worst case scenario. I still like them big against Florida because I do think there's a real shot that Florida rolls into that game 3-2. Now, if they do 3-2, like if they drop Miami, if they drop A&M, I know they'd be coming off a 2-win game against Mississippi State, potentially UCF, but I think they get absolutely rolled up in Knoxville. That's what I think would happen if they come in. But how many times have I said it, Mike? You know what I'm saying?
That's all I'm thinking about.
I'm walking shoes, sitting over there, collecting dust, waiting for that damn Gator game.
All right, and then this one was pretty fascinating. Again, that DraftKings loves Florida, and they hate Florida, and they love A&M. I don't necessarily understand all that, but how about this one, Shane? LSU at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
CFB Professor had LSU favored by 3 on the road. DraftKings flips it completely. A&M favored by 3 over LSU. And I know I just got done bashing Brian Kelly about 30 minutes ago. But, again, could A&M beat LSU? Certainly, at home. But that line makes no sense to me.
What's LSU's lead up here? What have they got before that A&M matchup?
They'll have Ole Miss and Arkansas.
Ole Miss, Arkansas. Then you got your bye after that, then Bama. Oof. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I told you I'm all in on LSU.
Right.
So you're going to give me that one right now. I like the fact that this line has moved. You know what I'm saying? A little more cushion.
Right. Well, you don't like him enough to give Brian Kelly his money to get a defensive tackle, though, do you?
No, I don't. Well, they proved last year. I mean, 10 wins without defense, I mean, we just need some sort of life over there.
Right. And then one more, Shane. I just thought this was interesting because when I said this, people thought it was crazy. And again, I think this validates our good buddy CFB Professor. He had Alabama at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. He had Oklahoma favored by 1. And the comments have still not recovered from that one, Shane. They're like, by God, this damn guy, throw the computer away, blah, blah, blah. Now, DraftKings has switched it, but Bama favored by 1 at Oklahoma. We're talking very negligible difference here, but something about these computers, what have you, likes that game. Oklahoma hosting Alabama November 23rd. Just want to keep your eye on because, again, fans hate it, Shane, when we make, such and such team Super Bowl, all this, that, and the other. But I think for Oklahoma, coming into the SEC, there's been a lot of disrespect. Can Oklahoma even compete at this level? You knock off a team like Alabama. I don't care even if they do take a slight step back this year. That's like a program-defining win.
Yeah,
I think that it's going to be a huge game in Norman.
And what's crazy when you're looking at Oklahoma's schedule here, starting on October 26th, they got Ole Miss, Maine, Mizzou, Alabama, LSU. There's 4 teams right there that are vying for maybe a spot into the college football playoffs. And it's almost crazy that Oklahoma could single-handedly ruin everyone's dreams. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that it's 1, if you're Alabama and maybe you drop one or two early in the season, you're making a case that you should be in the playoffs. And then now you got a 1-point underdog, or they're favorites?
According to DraftKings, Bama's favored by 1.
Well, but it's going to be at Oklahoma. I mean, that's
right.
That is going to be a hell of a matchup, man. Oh my gosh. Just think about it. We're going to have November is going to be awesome, brother. It is going to be nonstop. We don't know who's getting in. You think at the start of November, you've got the 3 or 4 teams figured out. It's going to change by the end of that month.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, buddy. And then again, so I also tease this real quick. 10 games, Shane, that I think will define the season. And I should say that I don't think I have any. I don't have any Georgia.
Okay.
Because here's the logic in something like that. Georgia's favored in every game, but even if they get upset, let's throw up their schedule here, because they got a lot of tough. I think they probably will lose a game, but it's not going to define their season. Whether it's at Bama, who could be underrated, at Texas, we just got done talking about that, at Ole Miss, who I think is a national championship contender, Tennessee at home, that Clemson game potentially tricky. I think Florida's going to be good. Again, that's probably very unlikely. But all these games I'm throwing out, if they lose one, again, fans aren't going to be happy, but they're going to go from the number 1 seed to like the 3 seed. You know what I mean? It will not define their season. Now, if they lose 4 of these damn games, it'll define their season. But it's crazy. That ain't going to happen. So do you understand the logic here? And again, the case in point, we already talked about it, but or did we? We're going to talk about it in just a second.
The thing with Georgia too, it's like they got 6, maybe even 7. You can make the case top 25 teams that they're going to be playing, and you still feel very confident that they're going to beat those. Maybe 1 or 2 they drop, they're still going to get in. So I see your concept here.
Right. And so a lot of these are early in the season. Not all of them, but most of them are early in the season. And I hate to do it because Michael in the comments said every Florida game is basically here. And he's right. But it's the one, leading the bat here is that Miami game.
Yep.
Because if they win it, we can start to believe a little bit. We can get some confidence. Meanwhile, if they lose it, nationally televised, fire Billy, that ain't going away. It's just ramping up. So that, again, I'm not necessarily going, in order of importance or anything like that. I am kind of just going more in order of when these games will actually be played. But any list like this, a season-defining list, I think it has to start with Miami at Florida.
This game is big. I mean, I go to sleep thinking of Florida's schedule. I got this damn thing mapped out. I know exactly what this schedule is going to look like. In Miami, the thing about it is like it's not so much that locker room. The locker room's going to be behind coach no matter what happens. They've already tuned out probably half of us talking heads out here, and they probably got a clipping of me in there talking about they ain't going to be worth anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't care. But when you're on the recruiting trail, it matters. And that's kind of what Billy's hung his hat on there in Gainesville. It's like, hey, look at all these classes I'm starting to bring in. But if you drop immediately, everybody is going to be starting that narrative that Billy will not be here next year. And you just can't afford that. I mean, the Utah loss last year took a lot of wind out of the sails. I mean, it's going to be times 20 if it happens with Miami here at home.
Yeah, I mean, oh, buddy. All right, and then next game on my list. I think this will be, possibly equally as important, Shane, and a season-defining type. Arkansas at Oklahoma State, week 2 of the season. If I think you're going to be bet against, unless of course you're diehard Razorback fan, but the rest of the SEC thinks you're going to lose. They're probably going to think you're going to lose big. And this is a game where you can turn that narrative around. Maybe this is like a Taylor Green breakout game. Yeah. Bobby Petrino, he ain't breaking out anything for Arkansas Pine Bluff. He's probably going to run vanilla just like Mizzou last year did in their week 1 game. And then week 2, week 3, they start breaking out the offense. That's what Bobby's going to do here. Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Now, flip side, you get embarrassed. you lose big, the heat's going to come on, and people are be like, you'll see it. What's his buyout? Who's the next coach? Yada, yada, yada. All that's going to start. I think this game's got to be on the list too.
Yeah, I think the key here is make or break. I think this is more of a make game than a break. I think there's a lot of people, Arkansas fans, I see them. There's a lot of negative Razorbacks out there. They're just like, we're shitty this year, blah, blah, blah. I can't stand that. I'm always optimistic. Even when Derek Dooley was down here, and I didn't buy a pair of orange pants because they didn't make them in my size, but by God, I was pulling for him. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. But I do think that winning that game, top 25 matchup, is a big one, is a pivotal win for Arkansas to get off in the right direction. And I think you're like what you said. This could be a green breakout game.
And this is basically the game that inspired this entire list. This one, Shade. South Carolina at Kentucky. So again, this is going to make or break some hearts here.
Yeah.
Shane Beamer, we got to fire his ass. I don't think they should, but you'll start seeing that. He'll never recapture what he had there. Same deal, Mark Stoops. Oh, buddy, we're losing at home the week before Georgia's going to come in and just destroy us. That's going to be the narrative. If you're Kentucky, you got to win this one. I think if you're South Carolina, you're going to surprise the country. These are the games that you got to steal, and particularly early in the season, because you might have the toughest October in the country here.
That's right. South Carolina, I'm looking, October is going to be rough. You got Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma, and A&M. And not to mention, you got LSU the following week. You got Georgia and Kentucky. So it is not easy. Whichever team loses here is probably going to start out 1-2, and neither coach can really afford that. I think. Let me ask you this: pressure. Which coach do you think has the most pressure to win that matchup?
Stoops,
yeah.
I think because it's at home, because of the A&M stuff.
Yeah.
Again, they have. I believe they've lost to Carolina 2 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So it was flipped the other way.
Yeah.
They had owned them, and once you start letting that rope go, brother, I mean, you're dominant, and then you let it go, and you're over and done with.
You're kind of like, hey, we've had a basketball coach forever. We moved on, and maybe we do that with football. I feel like that clean break could happen,
Yep. All right, and then how about this one, Shane? I swear, there's one more. Sorry, I tried not to make this a whole damn Florida list, but A&M at Florida, boy, I think that'll be a defining game. But since we already kind of hit on Florida quite a bit with that Miami, same thing applies here, but really for A&M. Because if you can go on the road, it's so hard to win in this league. People, that's a cliche, it's overstated, but it's true, Shane. Because I think you could beat Notre Dame. Yeah. Certainly you can beat McNeese and Bowling Green. If you're 4-0 heading into this Arkansas game, and fingers crossed for Aggies, you're 5-0 going into Mizzou. You're cooking now. Yeah. We got our guy. These are the narrative, Shane, that we've had about 6 years in a row for A&M, and they'd be 3-2 going into a big game. Because for whatever reason, someone would get hurt, or they'd have coaching issues, this, that, or the other. If we can steal one, and that might not even be the right word, because who knows how good Florida's going to be. But if you can beat Florida, I think A&M's going to have one hell of a season.
Yeah, the one thing I do like about A&M is their home and away schedule. A lot of their tougher matchups are going to be at home, and the away games, like you said, you're looking at Florida, maybe Auburn. Those are your two toughest matchups, and if you could win that Florida win early, you've got all the way till the end of November to worry about the Auburn one. So yeah, I see why they kind of lean toward A&M as far as being favorites, but I'm still not getting sucked in, Mike. I'm just not. I can look at this schedule all day long. It ain't happening.
All right, then I threw this one in because we got to mention them at least to some degree, Shane. Vanderbilt. I bet you won't even. Can you guess which one I got on here? And it's not Virginia Tech.
Georgia State.
that's the one. I mean, that's
September 4th. That's a franchise killer right there.
Georgia State's coach literally quit during spring ball to go be an assistant back at South Carolina. You cannot lose this damn game if you're Clark Lee. You got to beat Alcorn. You got to beat Georgia State. Why you're playing at Georgia State, I'll never know. But if we ain't beating him year 4 of the Clark Lee era, they ought to just fire him the next day.
I just now realized that Vanderbilt, an SEC team, is going to play at Georgia State. Are we paying them? Are we paying them to go to their place and potentially get our ass kicked?
I think this is a paycheck game for Vanderbilt.
But Vanderbilt got paid. Damn, man. Oh my God, you ain't right.
All right, how about this one, Shane? And it may not be the one you think it is, but Tennessee,
Oklahoma,
who apparently, according to our buddy Adam Sparks there, Knoxville News Sentinel, he was at the they do a statewide tour, what have you. It's called the Big Orange Caravan. Somebody was asking Josh Heupel about the Oklahoma game. He says, well, hell, I didn't even know Oklahoma was on the schedule until you said something. That lying bastard. I think he was joking. Let's hope and pray he was just joking. But again, that's going to be a huge game there for both these teams. The first SEC game for both of them, and the fanfare that's going to be there in Norman, Oklahoma. That, buddy, I again, same thing. I kind of keep repeating myself here, but the winner of Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Norman, I think is going to have a fantastic year.
Oh yeah, I think that first SEC matchup is so big because it's remembered. Hell, if you've watched the Johnny Manziel documentary, you remember the first matchup, A&M in Florida, and Florida beat them. So it's like you don't want to lose that game, and then you don't lose to a guy that was on your team, and there's so many cool storylines that are going to be coming out for this one. But again, on the Tennessee side, this is a momentum shift. This is to remind or tell everyone that Tennessee is legit, that they should be considered for a college football playoff potentially later in the end of the season. So this is a big game for both schools.
Right. And another one that is similar, Shane. Our Missouri Tigers here. Any guess which one I went with here?
With Mizzou, man, they got a lot of them here. I say Oklahoma again.
I could have, Shane, but I'm going at Texas A&M, the milk chugging contest, and for good reason, Shane, because Missouri, given his schedule, again, surely this ain't the first time y'all have seen this, but if you're just listening back, it's Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt, all at home. Missouri, unless something drastically horrible happens, is going to be 4-0.
Yeah.
They could be 4-0 and be awful. Now, we don't think they're awful, but again, given who they're playing, they could be awful and still be undefeated, given this schedule they got. So I think we won't know for sure. It's kind of sad about Mizzou until October 5th with going to Texas A&M. Who again, who knows how good A&M will be, but I think that this will be the first time we have a real indication of what Missouri is.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just that Oklahoma has just been kind of, there've been a lot of chirping, brother. A lot of chirping out there with the fan bases, and I do think that, Missouri cannot afford to lose. I don't think they can lose 2 games. Right. And if they drop a Bama or if they drop an A&M earlier, that could be the game that keeps them out of the college football playoff. So I just think there's a lot on the line. It's at home. You don't want to lose. This is going to be a rivalry, and I can't wait for it. I mean, it kind of already is, but I think, when we look back at these teams 10, 15, 20 years from now, when we mention Mizzou, we'll also mention how bad they hate Oklahoma. All
right, how about this one, Shane? A little bit different, but critically important, I think, for Ole Miss. And you got to realize they have a different standard this year.
Yeah.
We had Neil McCready on the show recently. He said 9-3 ain't cutting it. Nobody's signing up for that. So the expectations higher than they've ever been in Oxford.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'm going October 12th, Shane, at LSU. Your LSU Tigers, who won't pay for a defensive line, and Lane Kiffin loves to run the football. We're going to run it right at him because they won't pay that damn bad whatever he asks. But again, I think this will be a defining one. Now, could you lose to LSU and still have a pretty good year? Perhaps. But if Ole Miss drops to LSU and loses to Georgia, I don't care if they beat Oklahoma by 50 points. Same thing you just said about Missouri. I don't know if they have the resume here to get into the college football playoff. Now, again, maybe they will at 10-2, but it won't be a given. You're basically putting it in the committee's hands, and we've never seen them do this 12-team playoff, so who knows? Yeah. But I think that October 12th is maybe the biggest game on Ole Miss schedule, because even if you lose to Georgia, if you win the rest of them, you're in.
I think it's a big game, obviously, but it's that Georgia game for me, man. I mean, I go back to the get your popcorn ready with Alabama, and you're thinking, like, is Lane Kiffin, like, is this as good? Like, have we seen his ceiling? Is he a college football playoff coach? Is he a national championship contender? I think when you go into these big marquee matchups, the LSU is obviously going to be a really good game. Oklahoma will be a really, really good game. But this is a game that will be circled in Lane Kiffin's basement. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the one he wants. And if they can't keep it close, I think people start, getting a little uncomfortable. Why did I give you all this money to get all these kids if we can't even keep it within a score of the Georgia Bulldogs?
Well,
I know it's easier said than done,
because they're the team that runs the sport right now, pretty much.
But again, you look, if you poll the Ole Miss fans right now, they feel like they have a roster to compete with the Bulldogs. They feel like they have a championship football team here.
But will they feel that way if they lose at LSU? If they lose to Oklahoma?
Well, no,
I don't think so.
No, I guarantee. I mean, you could do that with any team that they play, but if you're talking about the make or break, I think as far as Lane Kiffin, this is a make or break, because is he ever going to hang with the big boys? This is the ultimate test here.
Okay. Well, speaking of ultimate test, Shane, your Texas Longhorns here. I got one more. October 12th, Oklahoma, buddy. They're everybody's looking past Oklahoma. Texas is going to come in here and run this damn league, and Oklahoma got us last year. Let's not forget, this one of the best rivalries in all of sports. Yeah. I think they should they should cakewalk to Oklahoma.
Yep.
But again, you got Georgia the following week. There's a look ahead factor. You lose to Oklahoma and Georgia, all of a sudden, this team with all this hype, team of the game of the century, all of a sudden, you may not make the playoff if you're losing two in a row. Because basically your margin of error, you will be going into that A&M game with your playoff shots. I don't want to say on life support, but the game will be decided there in College Station, and buddy, that would be a disaster, I think, for Texas if they're one loss away from getting eliminated going into that A&M game.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head here, brother. Texas feels like they can beat everybody, including Georgia. I could make the argument Michigan week 2 is a game you just can't afford to F up. I don't like these FanDuel, scores coming out, because it's just like, oh man, we don't need this to be a football game, because they've got a lot of other ones on their schedule. So, but yeah, messing up one of these other teams is one of the reasons that Texas could get left out at the end of the season.
Right, and I'm no Oklahoma, Texas historian, Shane. They're new to us, remember? But, yeah, I thought I was right. Now, the one win was a big one 2 years ago, 49-0, Shane.
Yeah.
But if Oklahoma wins this season, that'll be 6 out of 7. They've beaten Texas Longhorns After all this offseason of shit talking, and we've surpassed you and yada yada yada. Well, you lost 6-7 to your main rival. None of that is worth anything you're saying if you lose this game.
And they figured out the transfer portal. I'm telling you, they may be here sooner than you. Pun intended.
All right, last one, Shay. This one had to make the list too. And I bet if you just reached in the back of your mind, Shane, so what is the most important game? What is the game we have to win? Otherwise, the season's a failure. This is Cousin Shane written all over it. What's the one game in your mind you go into every season hoping your team wins more than any other?
Me?
Yeah.
Tennessee, Florida.
October 12th. I get all this trash into Billy Napier. Billy's going to get fired. They're going to win 2 games. We've had someone on say 2 games. Some people say 4 games. You better beat Florida in Neyland Stadium. Otherwise, hell, I don't care if you win the rest of them. It'll feel like a loss here.
Yeah. And as a Tennessee fan, you're like, crap, they got a really good backup quarterback too. That's our kryptonite,
All right, buddy.
Mertz goes down in the second quarter, and Tennessee fans just head to the parking lot.
All right, buddy. Hey, well, that's all I got on this show. Been a fun one. Any closing thoughts before we head out?
Though, again, just a reminder, Mother's Day coming up Sunday. Make sure you get your mom some stuff. They put up with your ass. At least you can do is get them a card to Longhorn or something, So I hope everybody stays safe out there. Again, a lot of our Oklahoma cousins fighting them tornadoes. I know we got Tennessee. Yeah, yours apparently went through 20 minutes ago, so that's good that you didn't get touched with it. But stay safe out there.
Absolutely. Well, buddy, I appreciate you as always. Appreciate each and every one of you, especially those on the live show. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.